Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. I'm Zmore, the dad and dad plays stuff, and it's a long time no see from me. We haven't really been posting regularly, and I've been thinking of a way to change my content and what I wanted to make video-wise. And today I've kind of came to a conclusion I want to make this video. And it's a general kind of thought about gaming and going forward, what I want to do and what I want to see from video games. And to get into that, I want to go briefly into the past of video games, or at least my experience. Now, I've been playing video games since I was very young, about four, and I was playing back when the Commodore 64 was a good machine. And on top of that, I remember getting games on tape decks and things like that. Games were very simple, but at the same time difficult and incredibly colourful and weird and wacky and had no real rules. You just had the most insane games that just did very strange things. And when it came to the emergence of consoles like your Mega Drives, your Genesises, the Super Nintendo, all that kind of thing, video games were primarily launched by their flagship games. You know, your Super Mario's, your Sonics, those type of games that are synonymous with the brand. But there was a lot of games out there that no one had ever heard of, that didn't have any advertising, were very underrated, and at the same time quite cool, quite amazing and fun games. Some of them went into infamy for being fantastic games. You've got things like your Kid Chameleons and your Castlevanias and things like that. But then you've got other games like one that I had when I was younger called Cyborg Justice. Now, I got a copy of this game, became my favourite game quite quickly because you were a robot that could cannibalize other robots' parts and beat them up, and it was very Streets of Rage esque. But someone broke my copy of it and never found another copy to this day. Now, don't get me wrong, I've not looked recently. I could probably go on eBay and find a copy pretty easily. But when it comes to those things, there was a lot of games that existed that not a lot of people knew about and were very underrated. And the way I look at that is that games were a bit more of an indie scene back then. Indie games nowadays are essentially what gaming was back 20, 30 years ago, where somebody would come up with an idea, decide that they wanted to make a video game and make it themselves, and then their idea would come to fruition. And I think this is the problem with modern gaming, that the AAA companies, the big companies that make video games, are no longer like they were back then, where they had these creative ideas, these people that were super passionate about video games, creating them. Nowadays, you've got people doing it for obviously a job, which is absolutely fine. I don't think that's a bad way to try and do it to support your life using your creativity and making video games. But the passion people had for making video games when there wasn't a huge amount of money in it in comparison, I think has changed the scope of the way video games are now made, marketed, and played. And I think that's best summed up by a quote from George Lucas. In the same vein, movies have fallen in the same path. And we're going to play a little clip to illustrate his point.
Problem is the studio executives. The problem is that the studios used to be owned by people that cared about the movies. Now they're corporations. They don't love movies. They don't go to movies. They don't know what a movie is. And they do focus groups to try to determine who will go see a movie. And
now, we all know George Lucas is incredibly passionate about his movies, and when it comes to the art form of creating movies or creating anything really, painting, all that kind of thing, when corporations and companies get involved in it, becomes less of an art form and more of a business. That's when you see problems arise. So, for example, monetization becomes a thing. They want to get the most profit out of the project with the minimal cost, and that's fine to an extent. Obviously, everybody wants to, make your fair share and do that. But when it costs the soul of the project or the overall story, then that's where your problems fall in. And you're seeing it quite a lot with writers these days when it comes to, for example, Marvel movies and things like that. a lot of them are writing towards personal ideologies and politics. And there's a lot of gender politics being fired around at the moment, and people who believe in it, people who don't, all that kind of thing. And unfortunately, when you include your own personal thoughts on gender politics into a media that is meant to apply to a large group of people, i.e., everyone, then you're going to alienate a lot of people and you're going to get a lot of backlash. And you're seeing that in Marvel and in video games with The Last of Us 2, for example. And I believe these things are important and serious, but when it comes to serious issues, I want to see them in serious places. I don't want to see my serious issues in my entertainment and my funny shit. Like, for example, with the Avengers. Do I want to see the Avengers battle woke politics and gender stereotypes and, racial profiling? Or would I rather see them fight Doctor Doom, who has a death laser aimed at the moon? Definitely the death laser aimed at the moon, because that's what I want to see superheroes do. I want to see them tackle super problems. I don't want to see them tackle mundane human fucking problems. My problems are boring. I don't want to see my problems and everybody else's shitty problems put onto the big screen. If there's a movie specifically centered around that, like it's a movie about, for example, you had Tom Hanks's Philadelphia, I believe, which was about cancer or AIDS or something. I honestly forget. That's a good place for that because it's a film made around that. But when you just jam it into something that is already popular, then it just feels like people are jamming it down your throat. And when people do that, the reaction is to reject the idea no matter how much that you actually believe that it's right. And that's the problem with it. If somebody tells me meat is murder on the street and tells me for eating meat I'm a dickhead, I'm going to go, you're the dickhead. I believe that vegetarianism and veganism is a good thing to an extent, but when someone tries to jam it down my throat, I vehemently reject it. And then you've got the other side of things, and this is possibly the prime culprit of what I see as the monetization, or rather over monetization, of video games. And you can see the results of what has happened here in a second. And that would be Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, Grand Theft Auto 5 was released in September 2013. That is over 10 years now. And they have been milking that game for those 10 years. There's monetization, there's different things that you can get in Grand Theft Auto 5. They have made billions of dollars from it. But if you look at what they have created in the time since the game was released, you have LA Noire VR Case Files, which is not a new game. It's basically just LA Noire ported into a VR way. They've done a couple of things to it, but the overall core part of the game is the same. And then Red Dead Redemption 2. Granted, great game. I've not played it myself, but I know a lot of people who have, and it is one of the best games that is ever made, according to a lot of people I've spoke to. And I think, yeah, 5 years development time. I can't fault that at all. Then you have Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy Definitive Edition, which was a massive flop. It was a fucking remaster of a bunch of PS2 era games that went down the shitter and did not do very well at all because they did not put any effort into it and fucked it up. And then you've got Grand Theft Auto 5 coming out in 2025. Now, what I would say about this is that that's one game they've made in those 10 years. And you might argue, oh no, they've made 3 games. No, they've made one game. These 2 games existed prior to that time. They've just ported them and did something to them. They're not full games that they've made. They've not fully developed them. This game here, they fully developed. So that's one game in 10 years. How many games do you think they made in the years prior? Now, I'm not going to count all the remakes and kind of things that they made there. There are a few, but it's not all remakes. So let's see. 10 years prior. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Now, I will actually just look at the remakes and things. So we've got Bully. There's Bully again. So that's 24. You've got Vice City Stories. I believe that was a full game, but it was in Vice City. You've got remix of LA Club and whatnot. So let's just count now. So 23. Yeah, 23. This is like an add-on. So let's say 22. 22 games versus one. One game. 22 versus one game. Now, you could argue that games are far more complicated to make these days, that they're harder to fund, harder to get X, Y, and Z for. But then I would reiterate that Rockstar has made billions from Grand Theft Auto 5. And they've made one game. I just don't see how you can make the claim in their case that they aren't trying to milk you for every penny you're worth. And ultimately, I feel video gaming is reaching a point where indie gaming is the way forward. And when I think about the past 10 years and beyond with AAA games, you've got things like Starfield, Anthem, Fallout 76, No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk. A lot of these games launched very poorly, and some of them managed to claw their way back. We had Cyberpunk, which is now possibly one of my favourite games ever made. You've got No Man's Sky, which has a very vibrant and thrilling community. But you've got other games like Anthem, which, quite frankly, bricked people's consoles and broke a lot of things. And when these companies are making billions of dollars, where's the money going? Like, I can't say I understand the mind of a video game developer. I can't understand it because I'm not one. And I believe that the developers are at hard odds. But when you're at the mercy of shareholders and people who want to make as much profit to line their own pockets, they take it inevitably out of the quality and the video game. And the people that need the money, the developers, don't get it. And it's very disappointing. It's very discouraging from supporting these big companies. I mean, Starfield is a good example of a game that is okay. It is okay. When it first came out, I was like, this is a great game. But the more I played it and the longer I played it, the more I felt meh. I just didn't want to play it anymore. And I felt that with AAA games for a long time now. And as a result, I'm playing a lot more indie games. The ones that I've played in recent years that I've really enjoyed, or I'm currently playing, for example, Hollow Knight, one of the best side-scrolling Castlevania Metroid-esque games ever created. It's a fantastic game. We're still waiting on the Silksong second iteration of the game coming out with bated breath. You know, we'll probably see that when Duke Nukem Forever 2 arrives. But then we've also got things like Dead by Daylight, which started out as an indie game and is now the top isometric horror-based game to ever exist. And there's plenty of people who've tried to take its throne and not managed to do it because Dead by Daylight does what it does in a very unique and cool way. Granted, its community can be a bit abrasive at times and some of the problems in the games can be annoying. But every game's got that. Every game's got annoying people in their community and shitty bugs and problems and whatnot. Game development isn't easy. Then we have games that I'm currently playing right now that I've only recently played, like Phasmophobia, which is a great idea. You know, ghost hunting isn't a new thing to people's minds. We see it a lot on TV and in movies and things like that. But the way they've approached ghost hunting in their video game is very unique and cool. And then we've got the newest, like, hit indie game,
Really
Evil Company, where you
if the front
enter
exit
like
was
a
really
weird
dangerous, you could or the
base
front entrance.
filled with
then
monsters
go
that
to
all
the,
have a myriad of different abilities and do
the fire
different
exit.
things and appear in different
You need
ways.
to find the
In
bodies.
your quest to steal junk to pay a company so that they don't slaughter you, and then they pay you money, and then you go and redo it. Basically, it's just going up the corporate ladder with less steps and more getting ejected into space. But the point is, these games are unique,
If you find a locked
quirky,
door, tell me.
odd, fun. They've got the soul and heart of video
I'll
games.
find a locked door, never mind.
And I just don't believe AAA games do anymore. I believe that they're fueled by
What?
a quest to make as much money
Where are
for
you?
as little cost
You upstairs?
at the expense
Yeah, why not?
of making a good game. And it just disappoints me. It just really
Preston.
disappoints me. And I do believe indie games are where the future of gaming
What the
is going
fuck
to
were
have
you
to go. I think
screaming
people with
about?
passion, got
I mean,
love,
if you guys
got
want to
commitment
go that
to
way, we
create
can,
good
but
video
there's a
games
horde of
are the ones
There's
that
not a
are
lot
currently
going
making their own indie games.
There's a
and
key over here,
companies.
but a horde of bugs
But
got it,
unfortunately,
so I can't really
that
get it.
also has the
I've got a key.
inevitability of sometimes these little indie
What the
companies are going to
fuck?
go the exact same ways of your EAs and your
It's a hoarding
Bethesdas.
bug. They
And
steal
we can
items.
hope that doesn't happen for another 20
Hey!
years, but
They're easily
inevitably when something
aggressed.
is profitable,
Run for your
popular,
life.
someone tries to get their hooks in and ruins it for the rest of us. Either way, guys, that was today's video. That was me having a rant, me having a conversation with you all. And if you believe what I say is true, if you have your own thoughts on it, definitely leave a comment down below. Definitely leave a like, subscribe if you're interested in that. And if you're interested in horror-based content, check
Why
out
did
my
that attack
other
me?
channel, Grim Daddy. The link will be down below in the description of the
I
video.
wasn't the one
It is
close to it.
really
Someone was
appreciated
right on the
that
fucking
helped me
thing,
out
and I was
there
away
because
from it.
I am trying something different and moving forward with how I create content. Either way, guys, we'll catch you in the next one.